Hi folks, in this video we're gonna go through inheritance with the prototype chain. Well, what is a prototype chain? Let's have a look at this paragraph over here. It says JavaScript objects are dynamic bags of properties referred to as own properties. Okay, so objects have own properties. Like if the object is called, I don't know, Peter, then you might have name property called Peter, age maybe 36, weight 74 kilograms, height, I don't know, 6 foot, stuff like that. Those are properties in the Peter object, right? Next sentence. JavaScript objects have a link to a prototype object. When trying to access a property of an object, the property will not only be sought on the object itself, but on the prototype of the object, the prototype of the prototype, and so on until either a property with a matching name is found or the end of the prototype chain is reached. So that makes it a little clearer. Let's just blindly go through this code block over here. I also have my own code blocks based on this that I'm gonna go through after this one. Okay, so you got a normal function over here with two properties, right? Look, this thing over here, this makes it possible to access A and B by calling A and B from O, right? Like O dot A is 1, O dot B is 2, and so on. Now pay close attention to this one. Adding properties in F functions prototype. I'm gonna clarify everything in this video, but this you just go through blindly at first, okay? So it's saying remember we just create a new instance of the function f. So you would think if I do f.prototype.b and f.prototype.c and assign values to it, it will not affect the object O, because in this line 6 over here we've created a new object by calling new f in parentheses, new f parentheses. So always pointing to a new instance of f, right? So intuition might tell you that line 9 and 10 would have no effect, but in this case, as you will see the next lines, they do have effect, because the difference is the prototype. If you try to do like f dot b equals 3 or f dot c equals 4, and maybe you want to try to access it by doing o dot b or o dot c, o dot b will still be value 2 and o dot c would be undefined. So it only works because you're adding properties to the f function's prototype. That's the difference. And it's a very informative comment over here. It says, do not set the prototype f.prototype equals this object form, because this will break the prototype chain. So you can only make changes using the syntax over here, one value at a time. Okay, so it's here the prototype enclosed in double square brackets, it's not real code. I'll tell you again, it's not real code. Just telling you which level in the prototype chain that you are currently on. So because O is a new instance of F, O dot prototype means first level in the prototype chain. You have properties B and C by consequence of lines 9 and 10. If you go up the prototype chain twice, nothing is assigned, so you will get object.prototype. Finally, if you go up one level further, because object.prototype has no prototype of its own, if you go up the level three level up, the value would be null. Says this is the end of the prototype chain, as null by definition has no prototype. Okay, so it's a little confusing, but I hope you get the gist of it. Okay, so this is the diagram over here. What's happening to the object O? Object O itself has property A with value 1 and property B with value 2. One level up the prototype chain by the consequence of lines 9 and 10. B has value 3, C has value 4. And another level up the prototype chain, you didn't assign anything previously, so you will return object.prototype, and the object.prototype has no prototype of its own, so the next level up you will return null, which signifies the end of the prototype chain on the object O. Okay, and as you will see later, you can access, for instance, just the value of the property B on itself, or separately value of B up the prototype chain. These two are separate values of separate properties, even though they are part of the same prototype chain. Okay, so this will make a little clearer what I've said. If you trying to log O.A, you guessed it, it's present in it's defined in line 3, so value would be 1. There's the explanation over here. Is there an A own property on O? Yes, line 3, so its value is 1. What about O.B? Same thing, the value is 2. Explanation: is there a B own property on O? Yes, and its value is 2. Okay, the prototype also has a B property, but it's not visited. This is called property shadowing. So if you just do O.B, because you're going up the prototype chain, since O.B has the value already, it doesn't need to go up the chain like O.prototype B or O.prototype B. It already found it, so it will shadow out this shadow out the property with the same name or up on the prototype chain, because it doesn't need to, it already found it. Okay, so O.C, this is interesting. The object O itself has no property named C, but it is defined in F.prototype C. So you've guessed it, because it doesn't find the property C on the object O itself, it will go up one level on the prototype chain, and it finds the value as 4, so it will return 4. It will explain over here again. Is there a C on property on O? No. So check the prototype. Go up the prototype chain once. Is there a C on property on O.prototype? Yes. Its value is 4. By the consequence of line 10. Lastly, O.D is not defined anywhere, so it will return undefined. Simple. There's an explanation over here. Is there a D on property on O? No. Check it prototype. Go up one level. Is there a D on property on O.prototype? No. Check it prototype. Go up another level. O.prototype.prototype is object of prototype, and there's no D property by default. Check it prototype. No property found. Return undefined. So it has reached the end of the prototype chain. So it's a bit mouthful, but now it's an exciting bit. I will go through with you 2 versions of the code. Let's start with this. Okay, this is the same example as this one over here, but it's a segment of it, not the core, but segment, a little modified too. So you got f function, and you create a new instance of f and assign it to O. Okay. You say here, changing the prop of f directly, like f.b equals 3, doesn't affect O.b, but f.prototype.b does register and is accessible with O.b. Okay, so what does that mean? Okay, let's give you an example. Okay, so let's try to see here. O is a new instance of f, so you would guess that by trying to change a property called A on f directly, say it's 1000, this will not affect the properties in O, because it is pointed to the new instance of f, right? So this would be undefined when you try to access it from O. So let's try it out. Well, I would expect the value of this would be 1, right? Not 1000. Let's try. Yeah, it's 1. So the line 14 has no effect on the console log as expected. But this is an interesting thing. Cannot directly change the properties of f and then make it visible or accessible from its new instance. This time it's called O. But if you change the prototype of it, then in that case you can access the prototype value from O. So let's do it. In line 12, we have assigned the property called B to the prototype of f. So I'll output first B in here inside f, and I'll also output prototype .b of object O, and see how their values are distinct. So let's say first we have O.B. I expect this to be 2, right? Secondly, this is crucial thing. Let's access prototype.b. I would expect this to be 3, right? So there are 2 different values of b that are accessible from object O. They are on different level of the prototype chain. Line 18 just directly accesses b of object O. Line 19 tries to access b up the prototype chain. So we would expect console output to be 2 and then 3, right? It is as expected. Well, there's one more thing you should know about, is that why did I use proto here instead of prototype here? It's simple, but you gotta know this, otherwise you won't get it. Because f is a normal function, when you try to access its prototype, you have to write dot prototype. If it's an arrow function, you should use proto. In all other instances, you use proto. Only time that you use dot prototype is if it is a normal function like f in this case. Okay, so remember that. It's pretty simple once you know what's going on. So let me think. Okay. Oh yes. Inside over here, it says over here, when trying to access the property of an object, the property will not only be sought on the object, but on the prototype of the object, the prototype of the prototype, and so on until either a property with a matching name is found or the end of the prototype is reached. So let's demonstrate that. Okay. Let's delete this .b. So when you create a new instance of f and assign it to O, you don't have O.a at the moment. It's undefined, right? Because O.b, because it is deleted. It's removed from code. So if you put f.prototype.b and assign a value, then what would happen? What would output if you do O.b? We just discussed that O.b doesn't exist, but O.prototype.b is 3. So will you get 3 over here? Let's run it. Or will you get undefined? You get 3. That's interesting. That's what's been talking up on this paragraph over here. It searches the prototype chain until the value of the property is found. Otherwise, it returns no, undefined. So I'll write an explanation over here. It searches for O.b, then O.b setPrototypeOf, and you have found it, so it returns it. Where is it defined? In it's a consequence of line 12. So let's just confirm our finding. So we would expect to find it explicitly as well as implicit. So if you do O dot, well, what's O? O is an object, right? So you have to do this one to access the prototype. Dot B. This should also be 3, right? It's going up the prototype chain until it finds the property called B, right? And it's in line 12. It's assigned the value of 3, so it should be 3 again. So we should find the output in the console called 3 and then 3 again. Yep. So you got 3 and 3 again. That's what it is. So everything is clearer now, I hope. Let me break it to make the concept sink in your head. I'll try to console log a property value not found anywhere in the prototype chain from O, object O. So if I go up another level and try to access the property B, it's undefined because it is not found, right? So you would expect undefined. So let's run it. Yeah, it's undefined, right? If I try to go up a further level, it should still be undefined, right? Well, it's null because prototype of undefined is null, so it doesn't work. But it works if you explicitly mention it like this. Okay. It gets 3. Or even better, you can just do O.B. It will find it for you. Run it. Yeah. It finds it for you. So it's really powerful. So this is kind of like inheritance, but I guess less strict and more dynamic. So did you get how O.B works? O.B looks for property B in O itself. It goes up one level in the prototype chain, looks up O.prototype.b, and it finds it 3. So it finds the value 3, so it returns 3. Okay, very good. Now another example. Let's go through it line by line. You got a variable called shape, which is a normal function, and a variable equals p, which is an object with a property called a, which is a normal function. Simply logs AAA on console. So if you do like p dot a parentheses, it will just log AAA on console. Next line, you got a variable called circle, which is a new instance of shape. Well, shape contains nothing at the moment, so it's just an empty object, I guess, with no properties yet. Let's make things different by creating, well, okay, this is interesting. Shape to shape, which is a empty, well, it has no property of its own yet. we're gonna assign a property not on shape itself, but two levels of the prototype chain. Then we assign P to it. So if you do here, it's another similar example, right? You are not calling line 10 over here in line 7, but you are calling it after line 8. So it's the same as what we did in this example, right? After creating a new instance of f, and then you assign a property value on each prototype, not before. Just same thing over here, right? You got a new instance of shape, and then afterwards you add an object up the prototype chain of shape after the creating a new instance of it. It still works because you're assigning it not onto the shape itself, but to the prototype. This is very important. So if you try to do circle.a and run it, because a is a function, you get output AAA. Here's an explanation up here. Does shape have property A? No. Does shape.prototype have property A? No. Does shape.prototype.prototype have property A? Yes. Over here. Right? So not only can you implicitly run it like this and get the same outcome, but you can also explicitly name it. It's two levels up the prototype chain, right? So it's circle.proto.proto.a. That's where it's found. So let's comment this out and see if the inheritance thing works. It will be confirmed as being working if line 15 works as expected, right? Okay, so yep, it's AAA. So it went up the prototype chain twice to find A. Okay, so let's comment that out. What if we explicitly run it? It will still find it, but it's there, right? It's two levels up the prototype chain. Let's do it. AAA. It still works. What if I delete one level? It will still work. You would guess that it will still work, right? Because in the same way that line 15 works, they will still manage to find A. Let's do it. Same thing, AAA. Can you break this? Yes, you can. Just add another level of prototype to the invocation. This will give you, well, I guess undefined? No. Well, still the important thing is it doesn't work because object P was assigned to two levels up the prototype chain of the object, well, shape. So if you go up another level, you won't find A in it. So that's the error over here. Well, I hope everything's clearer now. Let's see if anything's missing. Yes, there's one thing left. Line 16. What do you think of this? Because of line 8, you didn't do something like shape dot, well, something like this, right? Then line 16 will not be true. But when you create a new instance of shape, it's in the same level as circle. So you would expect shape.prototype to be equal to circle.prototype, right? Or shape.prototype.prototype should equal to circle.prototype.prototype. Let's see if it returns true. It does. So everything works. I got one last thing to mention before we close. Well, there's a thing called getPrototypeOf and setPrototypeOf, and you might guess what they are. It's a little technical, but I'll mention it. In here, proto is used both to get the value of the prototype chain and also to set it. It's possible because proto over here is an accessive property. What accessive property entails is it contains a getter and a setter. So you can use this syntax in here to assign a value, or well, here you're using it to get or return the value. But this proto over here is outdated. It's not recommended that you use this approach. So the replacement of proto, you guessed it, is the object.setPrototypeOf or the object.getPrototypeOf. So you can envision this to be a setter and a getter that deals with the prototype. So that's it, guys. Thank you for paying attention. I'll see you next time. Thank you.